physics was known for.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. Former British Labour Cabinet Minister Peter Mandelson has been released on police bail following questioning over alleged misconduct in public office. Scotland Yard opened an inquiry into the ex-business secretary after material surfaced indicating he may have passed classified Whitehall intelligence to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. US President Donald Trump threatened nations with punishing tariff hikes if they play games after his trade policy setback before the Supreme Court. President Donald Trump has denied reports that the top US military officer has flagged the risks of a major operation against Iran, saying Washington would easily defeat Tehran in any conflict. The US ambassador to France, Charles Kushner, has been barred from meeting French government officials after failing to appear at the Foreign Ministry, where he was summoned over earlier remarks about the killing of far-right activists in France. French officials said the no-show was a breach of diplomatic expectations. Ukraine is marking the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion with a show of solidarity from its staunchest allies, and no immediate end in sight to Europe's biggest war since World War II. The United States is holding meetings in Geneva with Russian and Chinese delegations about nuclear weapons after the final treaty restricting Washington and Moscow's nuclear deployment expired. Mexico has deployed 10,000 troops to quell clashes sparked by the killing of the country's most wanted drug lord that claimed dozens of lives. News of his death triggered spasms of violence, with cartel members blocking roads in 20 states and torching vehicles and businesses. South Korea's former president Yoon Suk-yeol has filed an appeal against an insurrection conviction stemming from his 2024 martial law declaration. Now we start this hour with Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, alongside European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, held a news conference today to mark 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In the discussion, leaders reflected on Ukraine's resilience and the ongoing support from Europe. They emphasized the importance of continued aid and solidarity as Ukraine strives to defend its sovereignty and push for peace in the region. Let's cut across.
But even in the face of this terror, the resilience of the Ukrainian people remains undimmed. We have seen 4 years of extraordinary courage from your soldiers and from your citizens, whose bravery will echo through history. This will never be forgotten. In those 4 years, the support from your friends and allies has been unwavering in Europe and beyond, and you can count on it. Since the beginning of the war, the European Union has provided nearly 200 billion euros in military and financial support, more than any other partner, and there is more to come. And let me spell out 3 ways of support, how our support will be maintained and how it will be reinforced. The first one is the European Union loan of 90 billion euro. We call it the Steel Porcupine loan because it should give Ukraine the strength of a steel porcupine, indigestible for potential invaders. Let me be crystal clear, and the President of the Council also said it. The loan was agreed by 27 heads of state and government in the European Council. They have given their word. This word cannot be broken. So we will deliver on the loan, one way or the other. Let me be very clear, we have different options and we will use them. Now let's look at the loan itself. The first priority of the Porcupine loan is to address your most urgent defense needs. It will help to procure, to produce, to develop, and to secure advanced defense equipment for the brave Ukrainian forces. That ranges from drones to missiles to ammunition, and the work has already started. Together with the Ukrainian forces, we have identified a first package, a priority package. Our aim is to deliver it before Easter. It includes drones and ammunition. And in parallel, we are working intensely on the integration of both our defense industries. We can learn a lot from the Ukrainian defense industry. You can count on us with our well-established structures in the defense industries. So more integration is the goal. Of course, the ultimate aim is that your soldiers will gain a decisive edge on the battlefield to protect Ukraine. And of course, the European Union will have access to valuable, cutting-edge innovation that is also applicable to other industries. The second priority is to help you through this harsh winter. Invincibility tents, we have seen it this morning, we visited one, and they have become the symbol of the Ukrainian solidarity and the unbreakable resolve of Ukraine. In this difficult moment, let me reassure you that we stand firmly by your side. The European Commission is the largest donor of energy support to a value of 3 billion euros so far. Since the start of the war, we have provided over 11,000 generators and almost 1,000 delivered in January alone. But of course, we have to go further. And therefore, we have now a new package of 100 million euro to deliver immediate support. That what is needed right now. It's available on the market. So far, the money was not there. So the 100 million package can immediately be invested. And while we help you through this winter, we start preparing together with you the next winter. We will work on a new, we call it Winter Energy Plan for 26 and 27. The name is Repair, Rebuild and Restart. It will include a package of 920 million euros to stabilize Ukraine's energy system. So just to give a few examples, it will secure the steady flow of electricity across the country. It will accelerate the decentralization of the production of renewable energy. You mentioned how important it is. It will, of course, repair and rebuild and modernize the grids. And it will repair and restart the damaged power plants too. Let me add that there is a lot of coordination that has to go on because lots of in-kind support is needed. It is available, but we have to bring it together. And therefore, Commissioner Jürgensen and Deputy Prime Minister Šmihal will convene an energy Rammstein in March already in order to coordinate and have a very seamless and precise work together from both sides, the Ukrainian and the European Union. It will ensure that Ukraine gets exactly the supplies and the material it needs now. Finally, let me address the issue of energy security within the European Union. The Russian attacks on the Druzhba pipeline have had a direct impact on European energy security. We condemn sharply these Russian attacks. I would like to thank Prime Minister of Croatia, Andrej Plenković, for his efforts to secure and increase the transport of oil to Hungary, to Slovakia, and to Serbia through the Adriatic pipeline. And in the meantime, we ask for the repairs on the pipeline after the Russian attacks to be accelerated. Now, our third priority is to maintain maximum pressure on the aggressor. We will soon get our 20th sanctions package over the line. Our sanctions will keep draining Russia's revenues and weakening its war machine, and we are closely coordinating with our G7 partners for maximum scope and impact.
We welcome Mr. Dr. Satoru Nagawa for this. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, as they talk about, European coalition of the willing, especially, they talk about supporting through and through, Ukraine through and through, especially with loan after loan, sanctions one after another. Now on 28 sanctions, how effective is these kind of support have been? And looking at the next 4 years, do you think these support is capable of being continued from European countries towards Ukraine?
For Europe, fighting in Ukraine is one kind of defense line. So that's why the Europe has a motivation to support Ukraine. When Russia attacks, if the Ukraine will fail to defend, there's a possibility that Russia will attack the other country or the other EU member or other NATO member. So that's why instead of attacking this, Russia need to fight in Ukraine is contributing to European security. That's why the European support to Ukraine is decisive, but at the same time, Europeans need to continue to defend themselves. So they spend much, but at the same time, they have the will to continue this support. In case of the US, in case of the Europe, in this case, there is a gap in this case, because the US is far from the Europe, but Europe is located in Europe. So that's why this is a strong, European country has a strong motivation and they have the will to continue, I think.
Thank you for highlighting that. Thank you and sharing that. Now we'll cut across as Zelenskyy is speaking.
For membership, and we are thankful for big support and with candidate status and etc. from EU institutions. And I know that Putin will block our membership in the future. I don't want for my country, our people, which they live with all these challenges during all these years of this full-scale invasion, all this war with this tragedy, and that's why we know we don't want to have the same what we have now. Maybe it will not be in the future, but what we have now with NATO, because Russia will block it by themselves. They don't see Ukraine like independent country, and they don't see us like a part of European family. So that's why they will do it, definitely. But we are ready for fast track. We are ready for fast track for reforms, and we do it, I think, the parallel way.
Next and the last question, please, Agence France Presse.
Hi, Camille Condessu, AFP. First, a question for you, President Zelenskyy. You mentioned the 19 billion euro loan to get the loan, and if so, by when? And one question for you, Mr. Costa. Do you feel like Prime Minister Orban crossed the line by blocking the loan after greenlighting it in December? And if so, should that have any consequences? Thank you.
You want to answer? Yeah, I think that it's not the first time when...
Now we welcome back Mr. Dr. Satoru Nagao for this. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for staying with us. Now,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, looking at the Druzhba pipeline that was also mentioned by, I think, von der Leyen earlier, Russian attacks on Druzhba pipeline has, made Slovakia and Hungary against the $90 billion funds towards Ukraine, until and unless they fix and let the pipeline or the oil pipeline resume resume these operations. So how do you think the against or the criticism by Slovakia and Hungary will be affecting the coalition of the willing's stance and this $90 billion funds for Ukraine?
In case of Hungary, in case of Slovakia, yes, they rely on the supply line of the oil from Russia. But this pipeline is going through the Ukraine. So that's why when they're going through, of course, this is income for Ukraine too. But view from Russia to make the pressure to Hungary and Slovakia to change the stance to Europe or Russia, which one is better for you? In this case, pipeline is matter of concern. So that's why sabotage has happened, and maybe try to stop is one of the possibility. And on surface, the reason is this is income for Ukraine, so that's why they stop it, something like that. But indeed, the reality is Russia want to make pressure to the Hungary and Slovakia. So if you lost supply from Russia, you will face a problem. So that is the reason you should cooperate with Russia. This is a message to these countries, I think.
Right. Thank you for highlighting that. And also, von der Leyen mentioned the plans that she and the Europe coalition of the willing has for the winter energy supplies and winter energy plans for 2026 and the winter through 2027. Does this mean that they are skeptical about any peace or any peace talks successing, and that they think that the war will continue?
I think so, because despite the President Trump's strong efforts, Russia hasn't agreed the ceasefire. Indeed, view from the condition, President Trump prepared a relatively good condition for Russia. Despite this, Russia does not show the strong will to agree with this ceasefire agreement. This means that view from Europe, there's a few possibilities that Russia will agree the ceasefire and the war will continue. In this case, they need to prepare. And the problem is recently Russia attacked many energy sector of the Ukraine, and so freezing situation is a matter of concern. So that's why preparing such kind of the situation is one main part of the war. And so preparing for winter, prepare for the cold situation, and under the Russia's attack to the energy sector is a very important topic. So next year it will not happen because of the preparation, because of the effort to tackle it. But that is what I want to say, I think.
And how do you think that, when von der Leyen mentioned that there's so much we can learn, or Europe can learn from the defense industry of Ukraine, what does she mean by more integration between European defense and Ukrainian defense?
Indeed, Europe's defense industry hasn't prepared enough to support Ukraine's defense. So currently, without support from the United States, Europe cannot fight. But United States asked Europe to do more, and because the United States need to deal with China or other problem in the Middle East, etc., etc. So that's why Europe is not only the place the US need to deal with. So that's why European countries should do more, should take responsibility to do this. But in this case, the defense industry, the effective use of defense industry is very important. In the case of the defense industry in Ukraine, they are under attack and their production is damaged by Russia. So that's why the European defense industry, the other European countries, matter of concern. But each country try to improve the defense industry is not effective. So that's why they should create a coordinated defense industry, more effectively produce many products to support Ukraine, and to support Ukraine, supporting Ukraine itself is supporting their defense themselves. So that's why defense industry is important. Unfortunately, defense industry demand a long time to improve, because Winston Churchill in the past said the first year just investment, second year little production, third year the mass production, fourth year growth of production. So that's why this is a 4 years process. 3 years, 4 years is common. And in this case, Ukraine war finished fourth year. So this means that if they invest, the beginning of this war, they have already completed, but reality is that hasn't happened yet. So that's why more effective use is needed, more coordinated movement needed. And that is a lesson Ms. von der Leyen mentioned about in this case, I think.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for sharing that insight with us. Now we move on to Canada. Canada is renewing its military training mission in Ukraine, extending it until 2029. Defense Minister has announced the country will also provide an additional $300 million in military aid, including more than 400 armored vehicles to strengthen Ukraine's defense capabilities. In addition, Canada is imposing sanctions on 100 Russian oil tankers attempting to evade Western measures and lowering its price cap for Russian crude oil to $44.10 per barrel. The Canadian government has also pledged $20 million to support Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Meanwhile, Denmark is in talks with Ukrainian defense company Skyfall to establish production in Denmark. Now we welcome back Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Washington. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for staying with us. Now, how vital will this support from Canada be? As you know, we were just talking about, it seems like Europe thinks that the war will not end soon. What exactly is Canada's role?
In this case, Canada is part of NATO and very important. But at the same time, what is entering the military industry, age of military industry. So that's why they need to improve it. After the Cold War, the defense industry has shrunk too much. So that's why Russia has advantage and Russia decided to invade. So, view from this, improving defense industry is very important, and Russia's aggression to Ukraine is a good lesson for it. So that's why anyway they need to prepare the war and improve the defense industry. But it is true that they do not expect Russia's aggression to Ukraine will end soon, because despite the President Trump's preparation of the relatively good ceasefire agreement for Russia, but Russia hasn't shown any sign to agree this. So that's why this means that there's a high possibility that war will continue, and not only European countries, but also the Canada as a NATO member need to support Ukraine. So in this case, this is a chance to improve their defense industry, to prepare the new age of the military industrial competition. And so Canada decided to do this and contribute to security in the Northern Atlantic.
Right. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to thank Dr. Satoru Nagao for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout. Now we stay in G7. Meanwhile, leaders of the G7 nations, including U.S. President Donald Trump, have reiterated their unwavering support for Ukraine on the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion. In a joint statement, they have expressed continued backing for Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and right to exist. The G7 has also endorsed President Donald Trump's efforts to initiate a peace process, emphasizing that only direct negotiations between Ukraine and Russia can lead to peace. The statement highlighted Europe's crucial role in this process, supported by other global partners. This marks the first joint G7 declaration on Ukraine since Trump's return to the White House. Now we move on to our next news. According to White House spokesperson Karoline Leavitt, U.S. President Donald Trump's first preference is always diplomacy, but he's willing to use lethal force if necessary. Leavitt has also commented on the success of Operation Midnight Hammer, claiming it obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities. Let's listen into her statements.
President Trump's first option is always diplomacy, but as he has shown, he is willing to use the lethal force of the United States military if necessary. So it's always, the president is always the final decision maker around the president's initial statement, and the president reiterated that statement last night on Truth Social, that Operation Midnight Hammer was an overwhelmingly successful mission that did, in fact, obliterate Iran's nuclear facilities. That is not just verified by the President of the United States, but also the International Atomic Energy Commission as well. That does not mean that Iran may never try again to establish a nuclear program that could directly threaten the United States and our allies abroad.
Now, the U.S. is considering its options in light of Iran's ongoing military capabilities. Despite a weakened regime and internal crisis, Iran still possesses substantial firepower that could target American interests and allies in the region. According to former U.S. officials and regional analysts, Iran could retaliate with missile strikes or drones targeting oil refineries and causing economic damage. Meanwhile, Trump's military planners are weighing a range of options if diplomatic efforts fail, including strikes against Iranian nuclear and missile sites. As the situation escalates, U.S. forces have increased their air defenses and strengthened naval presence in the region, including the deployment of aircraft carriers and fighter squadrons. Now for this, we welcome Mr. Raymond Vickery. He's a former U.S. Secretary of Commerce and joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vickery, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, analyzing the capacity of Iran, how do you analyze the capacity of Iran, given that Iran has been so bold in and not bending on or being flexible on their stance, regardless of what U.S. is pressuring or U.S. is demanding?
Well, thanks very much for having me and allowing me to comment on this. It seems to me that the present situation shows that you need to wage peace just like you wage war. And that means you have to have a strategy, you have to have partners, and you have to have principles. Unfortunately, President Donald Trump's approach is not one of strategy, partners, and principles. It's one of transactions, real estate transaction, in which two great people get together, supposedly great, and they make a deal, and one comes out on top and one loses out. And President Trump wants to portray himself as the one that comes out on top. This is an entirely inadequate way to approach Iran. Iran, in spite of what President Trump has said, still possesses military assets, particularly in terms of missiles, in terms of the Strait of Hormuz, which can be a choke point for oil exports from the entire Middle East, from the entire Western Asia. So the disruption that can be caused is very, very considerable. And the situation within Iran, of course, is very divided. There are still those who support the Ayatollah very strongly, as well as opposition. In this situation, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States have warned President Trump that this is not an easy transaction, a walk in the park. It's not at all like Venezuela in the capture of Maduro. And it's going to take a prolonged approach and a strategy. President Trump claimed that the nuclear capabilities of Iran were wiped out with the attacks. But now, of course, it's still a central issue. If it was wiped out, why is it still a central issue? The answer is that it wasn't wiped out. It was sent underground and still can cause a considerable problem. So President Trump is caught between a rock and a hard place in regard to what the next steps are. The United States has drained its stockpiles of munitions, both in terms of supporting Israel, in supporting Ukraine. It's not entirely clear that the wherewithal is there for anything but a prolonged slog. Domestically in the United States, of course, the supporters of President Trump had voted for him in part on that he was not going to involve the U.S. in wars, in nation building, in prolonged military campaigns such as in Afghanistan and Iraq. For him now to throw that principle under the bus creates strong domestic problems. So this is a very fluid situation. It is not a situation which moves toward peace. And it is now up to other countries, other great democracies across the world, including those who have a direct interest, such as India, such as Japan, in terms of oil exports, and in Europe and in Canada, to try to bring some semblance of strategy, partners, and principles to be able to at least defer widespread hostilities until saner minds can prevail on both sides of the equation.
With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Raymond Vickery for joining us and sharing that insight with us. Now, moving our focus to Singapore, where our correspondent Roshan Gidwani is covering the visit of Yogi Adityanath, who is India's Uttar Pradesh's Chief Minister. The visit is focused on discussions around investment opportunities in sectors such as data centers, logistics hubs, renewable energy, and industrial infrastructure. Roshan Gidwani speaks with Luke Foley, who manages infrastructure investments in Uttar Pradesh and is the Deputy Head of Technical Assistance at Private Infrastructure Development Group, about the potential for growth in Uttar Pradesh. He also spoke with Nishant Kumar, the Managing Director of Garantco. Let's listen in.
Hello, I'm Roshan Gidwani for NewsX World. Currently, I'm sitting with Luke Foley, who manages infrastructure investments in Uttar Pradesh. Luke, you were just in the room with Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Yogi Adityanath. What can you tell me about that interaction?
It was fantastic. I think there's real opportunity for growth. The Chief Minister was very gracious in offering us time to speak with him, learn about the plans that they have, and understand how we can play a role in deploying capital and also leveraging in private capital into infrastructure.
What do you envision as far as how far your capital will go in Uttar Pradesh? What do you envision as far as the growth, and also post-2030, when this $1 trillion economy is realized, will you still continue to invest capital in Uttar Pradesh?
Yeah, at large, India is a major market for us. We see our role as very much leveraging in private capital. At the very least, we want to see our money not only deployed into the market, but also bring other investors in with us. Key sectors being those which are going to have lasting impact across not only this decade, but the next as well. So critical piece of infrastructure is that it has to last not only this year, next year, but as climate begins to change, we want to see infrastructure being resilient and offering the communities that it's in the safety and services that they require.
Okay, so Uttar Pradesh definitely has a long-term plan then. You mentioned sustainability, right, being one of these key factors. Does solar power come into play into all of this?
Absolutely. Energy is critical. We're using energy right now. Energy is critical for all development. Solar power, BESS, and any other type of renewable energy is a core piece of our infrastructure, our portfolio. And in terms of how it can help change the grid, moving away from carbon or a darker grid and moving to a greener grid is critical to any nation's development, and certainly going to be the strain for the future as well.
Yeah, it's a secure source of energy, right? And China is securing their energy with windmills. Is part of your infrastructure plan for Uttar Pradesh windmills? Can you tell me more about this as well?
So I couldn't go through individual pieces that are going to be in our portfolio, but I will tell you that wind is a key part of our portfolio as well, not only in Southeast Asia and South Asia, but also where we operate in Africa. It plays a great partnering role with solar, because generally you will see wind being more active in the evenings when the sun goes down. So it has a great way of kind of balancing the grid. It is a challenging sector to do, but that's why we're here.
Okay, it looks like the future of Uttar Pradesh will be bright. Thank you so much, Mr. Foley, for your time.
Thank you.
This is Roshan Gidwani for NewsX World. Hello, I'm Roshan Gidwani for NewsX World. Today, I'm seated with Nishant Kumar, the Managing Director for Page Guarantees. Now, Nishant, I just caught you as you were coming out of the room with the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Yogi Adityanath. What can you tell me about the mood in there and what you've learned from your meeting?
So look, it's been, I was quite impressed with the positive vibe that was there in the room. I mean, if anything, I hope I would have spent more time there to get some more positive energy out of it, right? I mean, I actually bumped into the official photographer, downstairs while I was coming up the lift, and he told me that Honorable CM, has been in meetings since 8:30 yesterday. He landed here 5 a.m. and 8:30 he's been on spree to meet investors, which just shows the massive interest that state has generated among the investor community in the region, and which is quite fascinating. Yeah, thank you.
It takes a lot of energy to essentially build Uttar Pradesh into becoming a $1 trillion economy. What can you tell me about some of the sectors that you're interested to see grow in the next 10 to 20, 30 years in Uttar Pradesh, please?
So look, the Honorable CM has outlined several investments, and in fact specifically on climate, right? So green hydrogen, renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, food security, affordable housing, and these are some of the sectors that my organization, or the organization for which I work for, we also enable investments and crowd in private sector investments into this. So we just executed an MOU with the state to help mobilize capital in these sectors for the state. Okay.
An MOU was just activated. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
I'm Roshan Gidwani for NewsX World.